everybody, welcome back to Northernlion Plays The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. There is a sight we have not seen in a long time. -1. Oh my god! 72RC-DDP4. We were about an atom, the width of a hydrogen atom away from being -2. That one would have been a little bit outside of my control, but yeah, fair to say. I mean, if we're being straight up, the last episode is probably the worst I've felt about an Isaac run performance in 2020. It's the kind of run that makes you no. It's the kind of run that makes you go like, hey, you know what? Maybe we could just put this game on the back burner until the DLC comes out. But that is the coward's way out. You don't build a muscle by putting down the weight when it feels heavy. Now, to be fair, because I know how arguing on the internet works, if you pick up a weight and you feel the very fibers, you feel your actin myosin filaments coming apart, your bones hurt, yeah, okay, put the weight down, dummy. That's ego lifting. You're insane. But if you go, you know, I'm on rep 6 and it's been really easy so far, but oh, rep 7 through 10, oh, my arms hurt. That's what you're going for. You build up the muscle by continuing. I mean, look, here's the thing. People will be like, be careful with this advice, because sometimes when you work out and it hurts, it's a bad thing. But if, like, an offhanded comment could cause people to work out, nobody would be out of shape, myself included. People are very like, hey, streamer, be careful what you say. You made a joke about eating glass. Your impressionable followers might start to actually think you eat glass. No, they won't. They won't. And if they do something in the, you know, it's not my fault. Let me put it that way. That's my my take on the subject, at least. Next time you're at the gym, if you feel like your ankle's sprained, stop running. Don't go, well, NL said I can only get good at running if I run when it hurts the most. That's not what I said. It was a metaphor. Anyway, it's been a weekend. You know, I recorded that loss on Friday. It sapped my will to record more Isaac, which is actually probably for the best because of the fact that I have like a backlog. So no problem. I took the weekend to get myself sorted, take a little break from Isaac, get my head straight, and now I'm back. It's been good, you know, nice weather. It's a solid. We almost walked into that. It's a solid time, and you know, it's the summertime, and the living's easy or something. Isn't that how this? And I only know that song from Subway. There was a Subway ad back in like maybe 1999 in Canada, because we get different ads because our prices are higher. Where it was like, in the summertime when the subs are hot, you can get a turkey, you can get cold cuts. In the summertime, you got eating on your mind. Now that's, I'll admit, I reconstituted the lyrics. I don't know if those are the actual lyrics. You know what would be a very good live stream? And it's an always-on channel. You know, it's not like an idea for somebody to be like, hey, this is my new persona, Professor Respect. It is... What if you ran a Twitch stream that was just a non-stop stream of local television market advertisements? Most people are anti-ad, I understand. This actually is huge for us, by the way. But they're anti-ad for, like, major companies. Oh, I didn't mean to pick it up yet, but that's okay. What I mean by that is they're like, I don't want to be advertised to by, you know, aspirin or something like that. There we go. There is an exception, and the exception is... Really? This is surprising to me, but sure, let's move on. The exception is if I had the opportunity to never see a Tide detergent advertisement again in my entire life, I couldn't say yes to it fast enough. However, if I had the opportunity to tune into a channel that played only advertisements for, you know, Boise, Idaho, local used car dealerships, you know, garage door manufacturers from Peoria, Illinois, I would be all over it. I would set my watch so I could watch 20 minutes of that every single day. There's no content out there as good as local business, like small businesses running advertisements against Wheel of Fortune in their local television market. I truly believe that. Every single one is like an episode of The Office, except it's happening in vivo, not on Hulu. See, that would be a great joke for the Office, but anyway. Yeah, we watched some Office this weekend. Got to the dinner party episode, my personal favorite episode of the series, I think. You know, I understand there's a lot of Office love out there, so people are probably sick of hearing about it. I mean, that's what I notice on the internet now. People are always like, oh, stop talking about things you like. There's too much positivity in the world. Come on, stop telling me about things you like. Why aren't people vocal about things they dislike? But that being said, you still gotta respect the dinner party episode. When Michael's like, I finally broke down and bought a plasma TV, and then the camera turns and it's like 11 inches, and he's like, and then, you know, if you got a lot of people over and you need some extra room, and he pushes it in like 1 inch closer to the wall. Oh, that's good stuff. Yeah, that was, you know, it was my Saturday. We did other stuff, but it was, you know, I mean, what do you want me to say? Oh, we got more shipments for the baby. Oh, you know, whatever, you know. We'll save the baby anecdotes, because there's going to be baby anecdote rich. You know what's weird? I asked my friend for baby advice. He gave me great baby advice. And I appreciate it. But it's so weird, like, in my circle of friends, which is not prodigious. You know, I don't know 500 people, right? Like, in terms of my peer group, I have, like, 20 people I talk to now and then. That's about it. And I, you know, like, the last time I saw my friends in person, oh, I mean, I live on the other side of the continent from some of them. It's been a while, but, you know, you still keep in touch. So, but anyway, the point is not that. The point is, let me out! Help me. That might be a secret room. It was a secret room. The point is, it's kind of surprising to me. He has a 7-year-old child and I think a 4 or 5-year-old child. Nobody else in my circle of friends has a kid. I am the second, to the best of my memory. Well, I guess Dan. That's true. I'm thinking more of like people I've known for like a decade plus, I guess. But like I went to high school with this guy, and he has. He's the only friend I have from that era of my life who has children at all now, and they're like almost a decade older than us, or older than our kid will be. Like it's, and I've been thinking about this. And it's a hard thing to explain. It's not messing with me at all. I'm just struggling to find the words because it's like my own insular weird thought that I'm trying to get out there. But here's what's weird to me, okay? And not weird as in like not okay. More weird as in just like, oh, I hadn't thought about it. You and your high school classmates are peers, but your children are not necessarily peers, if that makes sense. Why would you walk into that? Obviously, if you have kids, and you're relatively likely to, but if you have kids within a few years of one another, they're going to be, you know, possibly peers. But, you know, there's... Yeah, like you ever go to like your parent-teacher conferences or something and then look at, you know, your classmates' parents? It runs the gamut. You'll see parents there that are like, you know, when their kid is in high school, they're in their early 30s. Or in their mid-30s, or in their early 40s, or in their 60s, you know? That's just, and I mean, it's obvious, but at the same time, until I had reason to think about it, I hadn't really thought about it. I know we maybe could have gotten a restock, but I'm a little nervous about my HP right now. Come on, roll me. Sure, we'll try. Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike it. We can at least do this. No, we can't. Whoops. I think we're pretty much toasted, huh? Yeah, maybe we can get into a second secret room, but I think we're okay. That's fine, that's fine. It's just strange to me. Because, like, you think of, I mean, again, obviously if you actually think about this rigorously, or with any amount of rigor, is probably a better way to say that, because it doesn't require a lot of conscious thought. But you realize that there's no reason that the parents of kids who are the same age would have to be even that close to the same age. Although it probably does cluster that way, I would imagine. But when you actually think about it yourself, you're like, man, just a little weird. Because I guess I've always thought of generations in like cut and dry sort of epochs, if that makes sense, you know? Like they were stratified. Like the children of the anybody born from like 1945 to like 1965 is a baby boomer, roughly. If the numbers are off slightly, you know, have mercy is all I'm gonna ask. But I'm sure there were people like that were having kids in 1945 that were like in their early 40s or something like that, and they're like, well, we're not really a baby boomer, you know. The war doesn't have anything to do with this one. Really, let me put it this way. What I mean is, like, let's say you're born in 2020, because I'm not really making my point very elegantly. If you are a person that's born in 2020, your parents could be late millennials. You know, people that are in their late 30s. Even probably you could maybe have parents who are like late Gen Xers, you know, who are in there. I mean, you could have parents that are basically any age, but for the purposes of this conversation, but you could have parents that were, I don't know where I'm going with this. It's like, it's not I'm not even worried about this being controversial at all. It's more just like, I think I'm struggling to make my point. It's just weird, okay, that we say that you could be like part of this generation and then that means this about you, but it doesn't necessarily mean this about you because maybe your parents are not from the generation that typically gave birth to people in your generation. You know what I mean? Like if you're born in 2020 and your parents are, you know, late Zoomers, or I guess early Zoomers in that case, then is you're gonna be raised differently than if your parents are, you know, early millennials or, you know, late Gen X or whatever. That's what I'm trying to say. It's all nonsense. Wait, it's all arbitrary? Always has been. I kind of don't get that meme. Like, I understand the joke, but I just don't understand why it's funny, I guess. The one where the astronaut has the other astronaut and he's like, he's killing him. So I get that the joke is that he's revealing, let's go. He's revealing a mystery. And then the astronaut is learning this information. And it's very tragic because he's learning the information right before he has to be taken out because he knows too much. So again, because I know the internet, people are going to be like, that's not the joke. No, that's the joke for sure. I'm something of a humor scholar. Now that's a joke. We love tarot cloth. Now do it in Golem's voice. We love the tarot. I'm not gonna do that. Andy Serkis. Anyone ever done that? What about like a Britney Spears Andy Serkis song? He can play Golem, he can play King Kong, he's in the MCU, Andy Serkis. He did play King Kong, by the way. He did the mocap. Look it up, sweetheart. Are you crazy? I just walked over here. We're on Caves 2. This run has really, really come together. There was some spice, and you know, much like at a restaurant, a little spice can be very nice. And I'm happy that we're a little closer to maybe getting one over on this. Tarot cloth, real nice. Like, BFF pointy rib is, I think, our #1 leverage point right now, our #1 advantage. We actually, now that I look at it, our damage stat is actually horrible. We could... Well, what we could have used is blue candle, but I don't think there was a way for us to have realistically afforded it back then. That's my thoughts on this subject. How am I doing? I'm well, honestly. Can't complain. Again, had a nice Saturday. Played a little bit of that Fall Guys beta this weekend. Is a weird thing to point out because I'm sure that it's possible by now. Yeah, we'll definitely take. Even though it lowers our damage, the rate of fire is well worth it, I think. But by the time this video goes up, it's possible that the game will actually be out. But I think that beta is good. It also highlights something that is annoying for me. And I know I've kind of... There's been a few games industry episodes of Isaac lately. But, you know, I mean, you're watching somebody who works in the games industry. Even if you don't see it that way. Sometimes people, by the way, they'll say, like, you don't work in the games industry, don't get down on yourself. And I'm like, what do you mean, don't get down on yourself? I'm like... Unless you're just making the joke of the century. I don't get down on myself. I'm just... Sometimes people give journalists a lot of crap, and then they kind of let the YouTubers slide. You know? They're like, you're different. You're not like them. You're a cool journalist. I'm like, no, I'm not. Don't flatter me. But either way... And this is less about industry, it's more about, like fandom, I guess. But, you know, I watched, you know, like, Malf and Apollo and Justin and some other people play a bunch of Fall Guys. They were having a great time. They played it for, like, 5 or 6 hours, maybe. And then there was an argument or a discussion in chat. People were like, I'm telling you, this game... It's dead in like 2 months. It's dead in 2 weeks. This game's never gonna take off. And I'm just like, why do you... And it's a question in good faith. Why do you care? I guess is where I'm going at this one from. You know, I think I understand that you do, and this happens to a lot of games. You don't want to purchase something and then have it be you know, it's an online game, and then it relies on there being a fan base, and then, oops, all of a sudden there's no fan base, and now you feel like maybe you've wasted your money. Sure, that's a concern. That's why, like, whenever I do a Northernlion tries of an indie game with online multiplayer, I go, please, for the love of God, in most, like, 90% of circumstances, do not buy this expecting to have a match against a random person online. All of those games, people have already been sucked up. League of Legends, Auto Chess, Warzone, etc., etc. All the gamers are playing something else, okay? But if you and a friend want to get together and play this, you have the ability to do so. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, I'm sure, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. I'm just baking that in to protect myself. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, you know, why are you almost like rooting for an indie game's demise? Like, this is... I'm familiar with Mediatonic. You know, they made one of the games that Josh and I played when Josh was full-time on YouTube called Foul Play. It was a co-op brawler that I thought was a lot of fun. They also made, well, they published Murder by Numbers this year, which is the Picross visual novel that I also had a great time with. 99.9% of the people out there watching these streams have no idea who Mediatonic is. But they're like, all of a sudden, I got strong opinions about this game's place in the ecosystem. You know, this is not a Marvel Cinematic Universe film. It's a $20 indie game. People are like, I think it's only gonna last, like, you know, a month and a half. That's really good! By multiplayer indie game standards, that's staggering. And I also disagree. But I don't know, there's also, like... I guess where I'm really railing at this from is, like... the idea that games are failures if they're not endlessly replayable and they don't get, you know, 10,000 concurrent players at all times. It's just unrealistic. You know, not every game... There's a limited number of players out there, for one. I think we will take this. And let's be honest, most of the people watching this have a game that sucks up probably 80% of their gaming time or more. You know, you play League, you play Warzone, you play PUBG, you play Siege, maybe you're playing Trackmania right now and you're grinding that out. More power to you. Maybe you're like, all I do is play Skyrim, all I do is play Stardew Valley. I think that counts, you know? Oh, I just play chess, you know? I play Mahjong, etc., etc. So most of us have like a main game that is a focus of our time, and we like cycle other stuff in. There's just not enough. The gaming industry is huge, but like, you know, so many of these games have sucked up millions or at least tens of thousands of people. There's just not enough for every single game to have an evergreen ecosystem forever, right? It's weird. Like, I do see it in the movie industry. There are, you know, studios and directors whose movies I do not like, for sure. But I feel like you don't see it as much, that there would be a situation like, let me think of a good example here. They'll be like, oh, Paul Feig, the director of Ghostbusters and Bridesmaids, is coming out with a new movie. I'm rooting for it to die at the box office. I'm sure that it does happen, because there's a lot of people out there. But I feel like in games, for whatever reason, it's just like, people actively like root against the industry. Not everybody, of course. And it probably not even I mean, I'm pretty sure the silent majority of people just like, pretty much are just playing Stardew Valley and League of Legends. And then like, whenever they see a cool trailer, they go Pog, you know? Or they play, you know, like a little Destiny 2 on the weekends with their friends or something like that. But people who are like a hardcore into the gaming industry, many of them seem to actively actually like dislike the industry. That's what's weird to me, I suppose. And to be fair, saying that you think something will fail is not the same as, you know, rooting against it or rooting for it to fail. But at the same time, I think if you look at a little indie game and you go, this probably won't even have 5,000 concurrent players within 6 months of its launch. It's like looking at like a little, you know, a movie like, you know, Lady Bird, and being like, wow, it probably won't even make as much money as Avengers Endgame at the box office. Yeah, no kidding. You're kind of setting up a false dilemma there, I think, that it has to. Basically, and like, it comes up a lot, specifically as a streamer as well. I'm not really complaining. I'm more just giving my side of the issue here, but, you know, and especially because we have our own, like, official Discord now, I see it. People will, like, you know, the number one thing for it has been the Doki Doki Literature Club subscriber goal, which we should be getting to, like, pretty much by the time that this video goes live. There has been way more discussion than I ever thought about whether or not it would be a fit for the channel. Like, collectively, at least dozens, if not a couple hundred hours of, like, comments and Reddit posts like, here's why I think this will or will not work. And I'm like, you could just, like, I'm gonna do it, and then we'll just see whether or not it works. You know why? You know, the principle that I'm looking for, it's more like the scientific method, you know? Like, if we're talking about a huge project that's gonna take tens of thousands of hours, let's talk it out. But if we're talking about something that's a little bit more, you know, it's easy, let's just be agile. Let's do it, and then if it doesn't work, oh no, we spent, you know, some hours doing something that we can, you know, look back on and be like, we learned a lesson. Kind of feel the same way. I'm like, why? Don't worry about whether or not Fall Guys is gonna work on stream. Oh, there might be stream snipers. It's hard to get in the same lobby. Blah. Don't let us worry about. Just watch. And don't get me wrong. I appreciate the fandom. I really do, sincerely. But and it's because I appreciate the fandom that I'm being honest about this. I'm like, all the stream, the YouTube videos, discussion over that stuff, I understand it, you know? When I'm like playing a game or I've just seen a movie that I like or something like that, I'll go check out discussion about it online and be like, here's how things are going. It deepens your enjoyment, right? But there are also times where I'm like, when you get this deep into it, you know, the time that you spend in consuming the stuff you enjoy, that's productive, I think, to a degree. But the time that you spend, like, beyond that, sometimes is, like, auditable, I guess, in my opinion. You know what I mean by that? Like, if you really like BTS, I think that listening to BTS is a good use of your time. If you listen to BTS for 20 minutes a day, and then you spend 18 hours on a BTS Discord talking about it, I'm not going to say it's a bad use of your time. All I'm going to say is it's kind of grown into a different thing, you know what I mean? Instead of being about the content in the first place, it's about the meta surrounding the content. Just it's something that's tough to tease out as a creator as well. Because I always, you know, whenever there's any kind of, like, you know, drama in the community, I'm always like, I have to step back and remind myself, and I'm like, all this drama has resulted because of people that enjoy watching me talk while also playing Isaac. Pretty much. Not always Isaac. Some of it's XCOM, some of it's, you know, from, oh, I found you from Northernlion tries, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it is like, hey, we like watching this guy play Isaac, and then, like, 3 years later, they're like, I hate this person because they said this, and I'm like, you get the idea. But I'm actually, like, in a good mood. This is not spurred on by anything. We just kind of got there via the natural trajectory of the discussion. Because everyone was having a great time watching Fall Guys, and then a bunch of people started arguing about, like, you know, whether it will or it won't become a smash hit. And I'm like, why don't you just, it's coming out in, like, 10 days. Wouldn't you rather just, like, do your dishes instead of arguing, and then in 10 days we'll know the answer anyway? Maybe not. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents, I suppose. Far be it from me to say that people should argue less. That is kind of the purpose of my content for the most part, but... Alright, we're heading down to the next floor. The only thing that's bad about this run right now is our damage, which is now high, actually, because of, purity. It's a nice augment for us to have, don't get me wrong. But if we get hit, then it's gone. So I think we're doing a pretty good job on this run. Not perfect. We definitely got over-aggressive with some of our play early on this run, but it's come together. And this is kind of what we need, you know, to get us back on the horse. The one thing I will say about having lost the streak the time before this one is that it really does, like, at this point, piling the wins back on, you can't take it for granted, don't get me wrong, but piling the wins back on will be there before you know it. Like, we used to be at the point where it was like, yo, wow, we got to a month without a loss? That's crazy. That was 2019. Now we're like, oh my god, we're already back at a month? So let's channel that energy. Let's carry that energy with us here. It's going to take some time, but, you know, I mean, I genuinely, as much as I laugh at myself whenever I turn something about Isaac into a life lesson, because it seems a little bit, you know, heavy-handed and preachy and like I have all the answers, when I definitely do not have all the answers. You know, I think there's something to be said for acknowledging that, you know, sometimes when you make a mistake, it'll take some time to rectify it. And, you know, there's a juvenile way to respond to that, and there's a mature way to respond to that. I think we'll take both. The juvenile way is, oh, this is going to take too long, so I'm not going to do it. The mature way is like, hey, if this is something I actually think is worth doing, then let's do it. Like, I know I've talked about this before, but there was a great... And it doesn't happen that often, and I'm going to say this sentence, but there was a great Reddit post that was... it was like 5 years ago, and it was about mature students, like people who go back to college when they're not what would traditionally be called college age, you know, in that, like, late teenage to early adult sort of corridor. And, you know, it was like, what's your experience been? And one of the top posts was like, you know, I knew that, like, the best thing for me in my career was to go back to college, but I thought that I was too old because I was 37 and I wouldn't be done with college until I was 42. So I would always tell people, like, you know, but by the time I'll be done, I'll be 42. And then one day somebody said to me, well, you're going to be 42 anyway. Would you rather be 42 and have done it, or be 42 and have not done it? And that was kind of the thing, you know, that push that they needed to do something. Now, to loop a valuable life lesson like that back to Isaac is a little bit cheap, I'll admit. However, I think philosophically, you know, it's the same. There's a temptation to be like, we lost, screw this, I don't even want to play this anymore. But probably the mature decision is instead to be like, well, mostly it's just because I'm embarrassed that I lost on a run that should have been winnable. So what we're going to do instead is be, you know, a little bit more adult about my video game playing, which is a funny sentence. And, you know, we're going to accept that, you know, we're going to take some heat over a bad loss. And then we're going to, you know, work on improving in the future. We're going to get back on the horse. For a couple of reasons. One of them is because getting back up on the horse is like my job. And then the other one is like I've really, on a personal level, I have like a quest and ambition to do better in this game. And I don't think there's much holding us back from that, except like my number one problem is patience. And maybe, I don't know, I was going to say focus, but it's really just patience. I don't think my argument gets stronger by adding a second thing. I think just being correct 100% is probably more productive. So yeah, I would say patience is probably the big one. So that's where I'm at. It's frustrating to lose. It's going to take some time to get it back. But, you know, the time is going to be taken regardless. So it's really a matter of whether you'd rather take the time and have a chance to feel good about it later, or not take the time because you're like, it's not worth it. By the way, some things like are not worth it. And it varies person to person. Some projects are, you know, they're worth outsourcing. Maybe you got a problem with your sink and you're not a plumber. You could take some time, maybe go on YouTube, maybe learn how to fix your sink. If it's a simple problem or you just need a part from like Home Depot or something like that, you're probably okay. It's a little bit more complicated. I'm not saying you couldn't learn to do it from YouTube tutorials, but you might say, you know what? I'd be better served just hiring a professional for this and enjoying, you know, my time instead. And, you know, applying my time to what I'm good at, and they can apply their time to what they're good at. I built in a lot of caveats there. It's a perfect argument. Same thing, and, you know, even I'm guilty of this with, like, fitness sometimes. Because I lost a lot of strength over quarantine. Which was in both preventable and not preventable, you know, without having access to I don't think our damage is high enough to justify this. Let's just take the dub, the easy dub. You know, without having access to a squat rack, it was going to be hard to maintain like a, you know, 400-pound squat. you could do a lot of body weight squats, but it's gonna it's a different skill set. Let's put it that way. And then some of it was just like, you know, a little lazy for sure. Not lazy because I did other work in the time that I would normally be doing those big workouts, but and now I'm like, you know, once the gyms are open, but it's still kind of like, we're not spicy, but we're like that first, British Columbia right now is that first bite of food that you ordered hot instead of mild, and you're like, we're tingling a little bit, but I can't tell if it's just, you know, anise or if it's actually like boot jalokia. So I'm and, you know, obviously we are in a situation where our health is extremely important to us, so I don't really want to risk anything. And I'm like, it's going to take so much time to get the, you know, to get the strength back or to lose like a little quarantine gut. But, you know, the smart thing to remember is that it's not that it's going to take 6 months. You're not spending 6 months to do something. You know, the 6 months is going by regardless. All you're changing is whether or not, you know, you're just changing your ending position. It doesn't cost you 6 months, you know, to lose 40 pounds. It's just that that's the amount of time that it takes to thermodynamically do that for most people. If not a little bit longer than that, to be honest with you. The 6 months is going to pass regardless. All you can choose is where you're at 6 months from now, you know, by altering your trajectory. I feel like that's been useful for me in conceptualizing like long-term projects and stuff like that. Just my 2 cents. So yeah, the streak in the whole scheme of things, 34 days, not that big of a deal. I'm not sweating that too much. Now, all I will say, because I don't want to complain too much about a run that's actually pretty good, all I'm going to say is I would very much like to see the damage aura, even more so than the rate of fire aura. The damage aura would be better than the range aura, is what I'll say. This might actually give us Mom. No, we only have 2 Mom items. Okay. Good items nonetheless, by the way. Now, we're going to be careful about it, but I actually didn't mind taking damage there just to try to get the aura set up. Well, that's better for sure. So anyway, you know, these don't need to be life lessons. Mostly, I guess selfishly, I'm like, hey, if I turn my loss into a lesson instead of exclusively having it reflect poorly on my ability to play this video game that I've played forever, then maybe it won't feel so bad. So it's a little bit of a coping mechanism for me as well, I suppose. And here we are. Day 1. But every day in this, you know, when you're building a streak is kind of day 1, right? The real question is how many day 1s can you get moving? How many day 1s can you stack on top of each other? I'm struggling to put a wrap up on this episode because I don't know where I'm going with it. And we also only have like 2 minutes before it reaches its end point, but I still can't decide if 2020 is like the fastest year of all time or the slowest year of all time. I did wait and see if this was going to be adjacent to the boss room just to see how deep I wanted to go into that. But it's like, the year has, in its own way, gone by really fast. It's a weird thing to say, but I think you'll understand. Just because there's been so much news. I mean, on a personal level, our pregnancy, of course. And then also, you know, we did move into a new place, like, literally November. So, 2020 is... a lot of our setup stuff came from 2020 as well. But, you know, also, of course, on, like, a much more macro level, there's been a lot of news. Like, if you previously anchored your perception about how long a year is by, like, oh, March was when this happened, and January was when this happened, years have happened in weeks in 2020, for sure. Like, you're gonna remember a lot about 2020. You know, if you're like, oh, I remember, that was the year that the Heat won the championship. That's a tenuous memory for most people. Oh, that was the year that every major professional sport and business shut down for 2 or 3 months. That's one that's gonna stick with you, I think. But, so, like, it's gone by fast, not because time flies when you're having fun, but because, you know, there's been a lot of, you know, information that's been overwhelming, but at the same time it's gone by slow because we have like a date in the future that we're waiting for. It's like a weird, it's like being in a bad taxi. It's just all full throttle, pedal to the metal, and then immediately as soon as the light turns red, slam on the brakes and look at your cell phone, and then when the light turns green you haven't even noticed yet. We're just like eep, oop, eep. We're going, you know, 100 kilometers an hour down West Broadway, which if you don't live in Vancouver, is a road you don't want to go 100 kilometers an hour down. It would be very dangerous. Well, I mean, it's a straight road. So now I'm getting a little bit too local specific, but I mean, there's a lot of traffic, there's buses, there's cyclists, etc., etc. That's what I'm getting at there. But I suppose at night, you know, at 2 in the morning, maybe you could get away with it, but you probably shouldn't because I'm sure the speed limit is 50. Anyway, going 100 kilometers an hour down West Broadway and then hitting the brakes in the middle of Highway 1. There you go. How's that for some local flavor? Nope. What? I dispute it. I dispute that. I will be making my dispute in writing. I do not believe I took damage there. And I don't believe you didn't. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I can totally believe you didn't take damage there. You weren't even really close to it. There you go. There's win 1. We're back. That is right, I did it. For now, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time. See ya!